Hey, this is Jedley. You know, for years, I struggled to get back to a healthy weight. I had been an athlete all throughout high school and college. And then when I got into the real world and had a job as a social worker, well, I got to tell you, I just forgot about exercise and I ate my way to a very, very unhealthy life. It would have been so much easier for me to get back to that healthy lifestyle that I loved in high school and college if I had a tool like Chronometer. We're really happy that the folks at Chronometer have decided to become sponsors and supporters of the Reading With Your Kids podcast. And you can find out all about their great product at our website, readingwithyourkids.com/fitness. readingwithyourkids.com/fitness. I mean, this is a great, great tool. It's a really great tool. It helps. Not only does it help you track your calories and help you track your exercise, but it also helps you track your nutrition. You know, you're just going on a diet and reducing calories. It's not the right way to go. You need to make sure that you're still having the right amounts of nutrients and proteins and the mix and all that kind of stuff. That's why Chronometer is so very useful. It's really easy to use. It helps you track 60-plus nutrients for 200,000-plus foods. And like I said, it lets you log your diet, your exercise, your biometrics. You put notes in there. It helps you make custom foods and recipes. It even has a mobile app so you can log on the go. You can check it all out and also check it out for free at our website, readingwithyourkids.com/fitness.
Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iTunes #1 kids and family podcast. Welcome back to STEM Week. STEM Week is here, and I just love STEM. I mean, we're surrounded by technology. I just had a conversation with someone yesterday. They didn't speak English. I didn't speak Mandarin, but we were able to understand each other through this little, translating device on their phone. It's so cool. And Jen Swanson is back to tell us some other great, cool things all about STEM. Joining us right now from Jacksonville in Florida, she is our STEM expert, the queen of STEM here on the Reading With Your Kids podcast. She is the author of dozens and dozens of fantastic books. The one we are most familiar with is a Reading With Your Kids certified great read, Astronaut, Aquanaut, How the Space Science and Sea Science Interact. Please welcome back to the show our friend Jennifer Swanson. Jennifer, how are you?
Hi, Jed. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy that you are here. Jennifer is such a busy, busy woman. All sorts of wonderful things going on in her life, writing great books for National Geographic and putting together the amazing STEM Tuesday blog. And she agreed to be part of our show here. And you're here to highlight what folks can find on STEMTuesday.com. Now, I was just checking it out myself, and, I love space. And I've been, reading about the space probe that's going up to the sun. And I was thinking, they don't know what's going to happen. What if they touch the sun and it blows up or something? But I'm sure it won't, because those guys are really smart. But anyways, there's a month devoted to deep space and beyond. So tell us what we can find on STEMTuesday.com about deep space and beyond.
Well, so we're excited. This is our July 2018 month. And if you listen to the previous podcast, STEM Tuesday is set up so that we have 4 different weeks. So we start out the first week on this same topic, deep space and beyond, with a book list, which kind of makes sense. It's like, okay, so if your child comes up to you or your student comes up to you and says, I really want to know what an asteroid is. Mm-hmm. What does it do? What if it would come and hit the earth? All these kind of things. We have a book for that, right?
Awesome.
So we have this book list. So we have a bunch of books, and the 2 authors that put this together are also award-winning authors themselves, Nancy Castaldo and Patricia Newman, and they go out and they search for books that they think kids would really love and that would teach them about some of these things that happen in deep space. So we're talking books about asteroids, black holes, how the geology of the solar system works.
Uh-huh.
Think about that for a minute. Like rocks on other planets.
Yeah.
So it's just a list. Let's see. The first one is Impact. Asteroids and the Science of Saving the World.
Mm-hmm. I know that book. That is an awesome book.
It is. It's by Elizabeth Rush and Karen Anderson. And this book it talks about the actual researchers who study asteroids. Mm-hmm. So if you have a kid that wants to know all about asteroids and all these kind of things, this would be a perfect book for your child, or your student. It also, here's the best part. It concludes the book with a list of methods that might be used for dealing with any asteroid that threatens Earth. So there you go.
Ooh, okay. Does it involve the Space Force that I heard someone talking about creating? I don't know.
I don't know.
We're not going to deal with politics here. Okay.
Probably a different discussion. But it's really cool when kids ask you these questions, and you can point them to a book like this because it gives them great ideas. And then, who knows? Maybe they're going to grow up and be a scientist like this.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 books on black holes, which I think black holes are just so cool. They're these big giant vacuums in space that nobody actually knows a whole lot about. We're still studying it, and some of it's like some of the most advanced science out there. So we have one called Black Holes, The Weird Science of the Most Mysterious Objects in the Universe by Sarah Latta. And we have, this is one of my absolute favorite books, A Black Hole is Not a Hole by Carolyn DeCrisofano and Michael Carroll. So, the reason why I love A Black Hole is Not a Hole is because it kind of tells you all of the things that the black hole isn't. And then in really good words, like easy to understand words, it explains what it is.
Ooh. Okay.
So, yeah, it's really good. And the first one by Sarah Latta, it talks about the exploration of black holes and the studies that are currently being done. So you could kind of, if you're teaching homeschool, these are 2 really good books to pair together because you can look at it from 2 different angles. This is what it actually is, and this is how we study it. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you have 2 books.
Yeah.
We have Mission to Pluto. Oh, poor Pluto, right?
I was really bummed out when they kicked him out of the club.
I know. But it's Mission to Pluto, the first visit to an ice dwarf and the Kuiper Belt, by Mary Kay Carson and Tom Ullman. And this is another, Scientists in the Field series, which is a really awesome, that's a whole series, Scientists in the Field, and it's by Houghton Mifflin. It's a really great look at scientists in their actual element, like scientists that go out and study things. Now, unfortunately, these scientists did not actually go to Pluto, although they probably would like to.
Sure, yeah. That'd be a long flight.
All about Pluto. And then we have Voyager's Greatest Hits, the epic trek to the interstellar space by Alexander Sy. So if you've heard about Voyager, the space probe, it's been going and going and going for over 40 years, which is amazing because it's still sending stuff back.
It is amazing. It blows me away.
Well, and I'd have to look it up, but I think this is way longer than the engineers who designed it thought it would last. Mm-hmm. But this book might answer your question about the probe going to the sun.
Okay.
Because it talks about how space probes work.
And I love that because there are things that happen in the news, and I know, myself, I'll sit down with my wife and I have all these news apps, and so I'm reading stuff from the Boston newspapers and the BBC and this and that, and I go, oh, hey, this happened over there, and my wife would go, really, what's that? And I'm like, well, I have a vague idea, but let me see if I can explain it to you. And the other thing I love about STEM Tuesday is that, you can sit down and, you're a parent, you're a teacher, and you want to get some more about, say about Voyager. And you can Google that, or you can go to Amazon, you can put in a search. But what you may get in those first searches are what folks are paying for you to get.
Yes.
And that might, that might not be the best resource. And STEM Tuesday, you have actual experts in science who are going out and curating, is that the word? Looking
sure.
and curating books and thinking, hey, we've checked it out and there's lots of good books out here, but these are the ones we think are really good and worth your time.
Right. And the thing is when you look at all of these books, unfortunately, we authors don't get to travel always to the places that we write about. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love to go to the solar system and, visit Mars and what we all. So what we do is a lot of these books, we actually contact real life scientists who give their time voluntarily because there's not compensation. And, but they do it because they love kids. And when you tell a scientist that, hey, I'm writing this book for kids, they get really excited because they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to be able to get a kid excited about what I do, and maybe they will follow this science later on in their life. So, these books that you're reading are they're not fiction. They're not things we just created in our heads. We actually do a lot of research on these books and spend a lot of time. And some authors actually do go out in the field, and work side by side with these scientists for like a day or two and follow them around. And so it kind of gives kids an idea that scientists aren't these stuffy old people that wear lab coats, but some of them actually strap on their boots and, hike through, the water or rivers or whatever, climb trees. I mean, they do all these different things. And that the child could do it too.
Yeah. You reminded me of something. Books are amazing, and it's great that you have, and we don't have access to, typically we don't have access to scientists and researchers and things like that. But every once in a while, we might travel to some place, like if we go to some caverns and we're going to take a tour of the caverns, or if, like me and my wife, were down in the Panama Canal. And and so those people, they have their tour, their script that they share with everyone. And I've done this in a number of places when my kids were younger. I'm kind of, being a performer, I'm kind of comfortable backstage. I know how you're supposed to act backstage. And a lot of times we end up being backstage in these different places where we don't belong. But if you sit down, if you have a chance to interact and you just ask one of these researchers, one of these scientists, one of these experts hey, my kid's really interested in this, and ask them a question and let them know that it's okay for them to go off their script and just talk from their heart. Yeah. We have had some amazing experiences. I mean, my daughter and I were exploring this cave system with this geologist. And when we told him he could can the goofy jokes about the highlight and look up in there's a big light up there, he said, oh, really? And I go, yes. And he goes, well, check this out. And we just had the most amazing tour. And, I've forgotten most of the things that I learned, but for that day, I was a mini expert. And so, having a chance to connect with experts and hear their own words is fabulous.
It is. And these are some of the things. So if you look at the second week of this Deep Space and Beyond in the classroom, that gets followed into the classroom. So if the teachers are like, wow, I want to do this. So two of my authors put a trio of 3 books together. So Team Moon, Mission to Pluto, and Voyager's Greatest Hits. And this idea is to emphasize the human heart of science as you compare and contrast the stories in these books. So how did the scientists each do what they're doing? Why did they choose this particular way to go after study Pluto or to create Voyager? So that's what we have in our second week. My book, Dr. E's Superstellar Solar System, is one of the books there. That's by National Geographic Kids. And it's really cool because at the beginning of every chapter, there's like a graphic novel. So, which is interesting, kind of gets kids interested. But it asks, there's a list of things you can ask your students, like, is the model of the sun the right size for the scale? So if you're looking at the book and you're seeing the sun and the rest of the solar system, is it the right size? Or is it like gigantic and the Earth is little tiny? Is it supposed to be that way? Or is it the other way around? And, you know, it's a simple question, but wow, you start looking at kids and their eyes light up and they're like, And you get the critical thinking skills that you want. You get the discussions, hopefully not the arguments, the discussions. You know, and that's why these books are good in any kind of classroom. Let's see. And then we had another one, writing craft and resources. So where you focus on the introduction of the book. And this might be specifically for like an English language classroom or curriculum, because you look at how these authors started their book. Where did they start it? Did they start it with the researchers as they're looking through the telescopes or, you know, looking at the information that's coming back from the Voyager? Or did they start it when, let's see, for Team Moon, did they start it about how they decided that they wanted to go to the moon? You know? So that's a great way to teach kids about writing, even with nonfiction books. You know, to say, well, a nonfiction book sometimes it tells a story, sometimes it just explains stuff, but where do you start it? You know? I mean, like you, when you're doing your magic tricks, you know, some of them are like really cool and draw the kids in. Do you start your presentation with the coolest one? Or do you start with the smaller one and bring them up?
You know, and that's actually an interesting question. And the answer is, it depends on who I'm performing for.
Yep.
Which is the right answer, which is the same thing with writing. Who's the audience? And is this a group of kindergarten kids? And do I need to catch their attention immediately with something big and loud? Yeah. Or is this kind of an older group of kids who'll be turned off by the guy trying to look fancy and will appreciate something that's a little slower and involves story and interaction and absolutely.
Or they're too cool for you, so you have to kind of start slow and kind of drag them out where they reluctantly are like, oh, well, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's most of my audiences, I'm afraid. Especially when I'm performing for my wife.
Oh, yeah, because she's probably seen it all. Oh, really?
Yes. This is just a side, and I can say this because she never listens to the podcast, so she'll never hear this. She jokes about everything. She goes, "I can do your show from heart. I've memorized the whole thing." So my kids have challenged her, and they go, "Go ahead." And then she'll start going in, and they're going, "He hasn't done that for 15 years. What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah.
But I love this, that we have this because the space is such a, you know, it's all around us, and it affects us, and now we're talking about you know, the whole thing about asteroids, and we're talking about going to the moon again and possibly building some kind of gateway to Mars and beyond. And so it's becoming relevant in our lives. And not only are the governments thinking about doing it, now private businesses are talking about getting into this, or are actually already in, are already in space. And it's not too far-fetched to think that a lot of the 9 and 10-year-olds that are in school these days are going to have a job in space,
or be the ones that go to Mars.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and then you said before you can Google this. Sure, you can, but the question is when you Google stuff, is it going to come up like in the kid language? So that they will understand. So these books are written for kids. And let me just tell you, people say writing for kids is easier than adults. Really, have you ever tried to have a long discussion with the child? You know, you have to, like, they have short attention spans. You have to be catchy and whatever. Not always, but, you know, if you want to engage them and get their interest. I mean, look at what you do. You move fast and you're a magician. You know, you don't just stand up there and slow. If you're going to talk to adults, I'm sure your program is very different when you're performing.
Absolutely. People always will talk to me about what's the most, and I've been in front of 3,000. I've been on the main stage at a concert in a baseball stadium in front of 5,000 adults. And people go, what's the hardest gig that you've ever had? And I go, 10 kindergarten kids. Because it's all you. It is all you. They don't bring any energy to it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and that's really, really important because, you know, if you start talking over the kids' heads, they're, not only they're going to lose interest, but, you know, we always talk about empowering kids.
Yes.
By talking over the kids' heads and not being, have empathy for where they're at, we're disempowering them because they're losing their interest, and then they're thinking, I can't do this. This is I'm not smart enough for this.
Well, and if you listen to them, some of the most unbelievable questions will come from these young children. You know, I did Astronaut Aquanaut, which is for 8 to 12-year-olds, and they wanted me to talk to a bunch of kindergartners, and I was just like that. I was like, okay. I mean, so I started out with, well, what's an astronaut? And one kid raised his hand and he was like, well, you know, it's someone who goes in space. And I'm like, what's an aquanaut, right? I'm thinking, one kid raised his hand and he goes, he's an astronaut who goes under the ocean. Ooh. Every single parent and teacher, their heads swiveled to look at this kid. And we're just like, holy cow. 5-year-old. And he was like, was I right? I was like, yes, that
absolutely.
Was brilliant. I mean, you never know what's going to come out of these young minds, and sometimes they ask really amazing questions.
And that's one of the beauties of STEM Tuesday, because you have the resources. You can't, as a parent, as a teacher, you can't expect to know all those answers.
No, and you shouldn't. Yeah. You're not. And I'm a teacher myself. I mean, I teach middle school gifted science, and these kids ask me these amazing questions, and I'm not afraid to say, you know, I don't know that. But why don't we look it up together, or why don't you look it up and tell me what you find? And, you know, you shouldn't feel bad if you're an adult and say, I don't know that.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the most important lessons we can teach kids, is to have the humility to be able to say, I don't know that. And that's where science starts.
Yes.
Because someone had the courage and the humility to say, I don't know how to do that. Let me figure it out.
Well, and my other thing, if I can get on my little soapbox, is
science
away. Is not always right.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes when you're wrong, you learn the most. So because as a teacher, you know, kids have to turn in their lab reports, and it, you know, you can tell it almost kills them when they say, my hypothesis, what I thought was going to happen, was wrong. And I'm like, okay, but did you learn why it's wrong, or did you learn something about it? And they're like, well, yes. I'm like, okay, well then it's a win.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's a win.
Absolutely.
And that's how researchers feel too. But I do want to mention the last week, of course, is the giveaway. So while this is July 2018 and it won't be on for then, don't forget, whatever month you listen to this, to go to the current STEMTuesday.com website. The fourth week of every month, we give away a book. This month we gave away Voyager's Greatest Hits. But all you have to do to enter is leave a comment. And I'm telling you, like, I'm looking at this month, we have 8 comments. So you have 1 in 8 chance of winning, right?
And you don't need to comment with the dissertation.
No.
You can write, that's so cool.
Or, I want this book.
There you go. So check it out, STEMTuesday.com. We've been talking about their their July posting, which was really delving into deep space and beyond, giving parents and families and teachers some great resources to use with their kids to get interested in science and space exploration. Whenever you're listening to this, check out STEMTuesday.com, comment on their 4th week, and you could win an autographed copy of that month's featured book. This is awesome, and I can't wait for you to come back to visit us again in next month.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jed.
Jennifer Swanson's our guest. She is our Dean of Science here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me, Jed. Go STEM!
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Patricia Newman. Patricia is going to be coming back to talk to us about how we can all contribute to the world of science. You don't need to be a scientist to contribute to scientific exploration. You don't need to be an engineer to help create some new engineering feat. Everybody on Earth has special talents and gifts that can be used to support science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I'm just so excited. This is a great conversation that we're going to have. Speaking of conversations, I would love, if you are an author, I would love to have a conversation with you that we'll share with the world on our podcast. You know, being a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast give you an opportunity to tell thousands and thousands of people all about your fantastic children's book. And check this out. Being a guest on the show, it's fun. I mean, you hear how much fun Jen has on the show. It's easy. And it is absolutely free. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know all about your great book. We'll let you know the next steps. We want to thank Jen Swanson for being here today for STEM Tuesday. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place, a more interesting place, by taking the time to read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.